Hello and welcome to the second episode of the How Much I Made series, where I share everything about the farming strategy that I've tested, including how much actual currency I got added to my bank after selling the loot. Today we are going to be discussing about a new scarab that is added to the game this league, the Incursion Scarab of Timelines. This scarab makes it so that if you finish every incursion in the map, an itemized temple with the current layout of the temple will drop, with the tiers of all rooms randomized. That means, as long as you have any corruption chamber or gem cutter workshop or their higher tier counterparts in your temple layout, there is 1 in 3 chance to instantly get a Locus of Corruption or Dorianis Institute when you complete the last incursion in the map. For this test, to farm the temples as quickly as possible, we will be using a lower tier map. But we won't only be farming the temples because that would be a waste of maps, and we have plenty of points on the Atlas passive tree after allocating into Incursion. That is why we will be combining it with essence farming, which is another strategy that is viable in low tier maps. As this video will be focusing on farming temples with the Timeline Scarab, I will be very brief with the essence part of the strategy. We are farming essences with Essence Scarab of Calcification and Crystal Resonance, and combined with Bestiary to spawn more rare monsters in the map. On the Atlas passive tree, we take all essence nodes except for the rare item drops and the Remnant of Corruption chance ones. For Bestiary, we take all nodes that can spawn either Einha or more beasts in the map. For Incursion, we are taking all Incursion nodes besides the Vow Merchant and the Cursed Treasure ones, because they do next to nothing in low tier maps. And it is very important that we do not take the nodes that make our maps has 4 incursions. For this strategy, we only want 3 incursions per map so that we can get 4 additional itemized temples from the scarab for every completed incursion cycle. As compared to if we have 4 incursions per map, we can only get 3 additional temples. We then dump any remaining of the points into Scarab just because we can, since the quantity and quality of the Scarabs drop in low tier maps will be quite negligible. As for the Scarabs to use, besides the 2 that was previously mentioned, we will also be using Scarab of Adversaries for more rare monsters and Essence Scarab of Ascent to increase the tier of all essences. Any map should work with this strategy as long as it is yellow or above for the highest tier essences to spawn. I'm going with tier 6 Arid Lake simply because I like its layout. If you have an extremely strong build, you can even farm this in T16 maps for better loot besides the temples and essences. But do be warned that the essence beasts are quite dangerous even in lower tier maps. If you are farming in low tier maps, just remember to remove your void stones so that it is possible for the map that you are using to drop while you farm. As for the map device, we will be taking essences as well. I will link the full strategy in the description for your reference. And here's the breakdown of the cost for 40 maps. You might have some question on the quantity of the adversaries and timeline scarabs. I will explain that very shortly in later part of the video. As you can see, this is not a cheap farming strategy because the calcification and the timeline scarab are both very expensive. For the next part, I'm going to explain what I believe to be the best way to do incursion with the timeline scarab. I will, however, not go through the basic mechanics of incursion as it will take a while. So I will link a Maxroll article in the description if you need a crash course or a refresher. Because the temples resets after every 12 incursions, and each map will consist of 3 incursions, the maximum number of times that we can trigger the effect of Incursion Scarab of Timelines is 4 per completed temple. However, your temple layout will most probably not be very good during your first few incursions, so using a Timeline Scarab too early will almost always be a waste. So, we will not be using a Timeline Scarab when we are opening a map that has a fresh temple. We will instead replace it with an additional Scarab of Adversaries for more rare monsters, which equals to more essences. And here comes the next part, which is also super important. For the first map with a fresh temple, we will only do 2 incursions and ignore the last one. This is so that after completing all the incursions in our second map, we will have done 5 incursions by then and have a much better chance of having the rooms that we want in the temple layout. This will also allow us to get the maximum 4 additional temple drops per completed temple at 5th, 8th, 11th and 12th incursions in maps 2, 3, 4 and 5. And during your early incursions, besides hoping for the right rooms to show up, you also want to optimize your temple layout so that it is easier for any future rooms to have access to the entrance. The most efficient way to do that is by first making sure that the 3 rooms in the middle are connected to the entrance. Once you have done that, all the other rooms will be able to have access to the entrance when they are connected to those rooms. Also, unlike a normal incursion run, you will not want to skip any incursion except for the first map because you will be wasting your Timeline Scarab if you do that. After running 40 maps, I managed to farm up 2 Locus plus Doriani, 6 Locuses of Corruption, 10 Doriani's Institutes, and 11 Apexes. At first, I tried to sell all of them at once by posting on the TFT Discord. As there is not a dedicated channel for bulk selling temples, I had to use the bulk other one to sell channel. However, after posting in the channel for around 30 minutes and even lowering my prices to below the market price, I wasn't getting any buyers at all. My guess is that either my bulk size is too small to attract the buyers that would use the channel, or there are simply not a lot of people looking to buy bulk temples on TFT Discord. So, I had no choice but to sell the temples one by one on the trade website. Fortunately, if you have multiple listings, some people might ask you for more than one temple at a time, which speeds things up quite a bit. I decided not to sell the Apexes because they only sell for around 10 chaos each on the trade website, which in my opinion is not worth the time to sell individually. As for the essences, I sold them all at once using TFT bulk selling tool at 100% asking price. If you need a tutorial on how to bulk sell items on TFT Discord, I covered it in the selling the loot part of my previous video, which I will link in the description below. Finally, here's the breakdown of the amount of divines that I've gotten after selling everything. And after subtracting the cost, the net profit is around 23 divines. It took me upwards of 6 minutes to finish a map, so I will use that to calculate the profit per hour just to stay on the conservative side. I also added a little bit of selling time because bulk selling essences and selling temples individually does take up some time. As for the result, this is a 5.3 divines per hour farm. Not too bad, but not great either. However, what we are really interested in is the profitability of the Incursion Scarab of Timelines. To calculate that, I consider half the cost of the map because incursion is usually done alongside with other farming methods, and only the cost of the Timeline Scarab versus only the profit from selling the temples. Running the incursions added maximum of 2 minutes per map, so we will use that to calculate the total time spent plus some selling time. So, if we consider just the incursion part of the farm, the profit per hour is exactly 5 divines. If you are wondering if adding the incursion makes this a better farm, it does not. Here are the numbers if we only consider the essences side of the farm, and removing the incursion element actually makes the farm more profitable. However, there is just one last important point for consideration. In the TFT bulk selling Discord channel, there are actually a lot of people selling the temples in bulk for significantly higher prices. I do not know if these are actually selling or not. If they are, we'll be looking at a completely different picture here. These are the side-by-side comparison between selling the temples at PoE trade prices and TFT prices. And as you can see, the profit per hour doubled if we are able to sell all the temples through TFT Discord. I do have to emphasize that I did try to sell the temples on TFT for half an hour and there were no buyers even at significantly lower prices. So do take the information with a grain of salt. If you have any experience selling or buying temples in bulk on TFT, it would be quite helpful if you can leave a comment and share your perspective. Before I end the video, I just want to say a big thank you to everyone that have supported the Path of Exile content that I have put out so far. For a small channel that is just getting started, the amazing support from each and every one of you really motivates me to continue to create more honest and comprehensive guides and strategies videos for you. So, I know it might be disappointing for some of you to hear that I've decided to stop playing the current PoE League, and I will be moving on to Diablo 4 next week as the new season starts. I'm not quitting PoE forever though. I will be back playing and creating content for PoE when the next league starts. For those of you who have asked for additional farming strategy analysis videos, I have taken note of them, and I hope that you'll be fine with waiting until the next league. I just feel that I've experienced the game enough for this league, and it is time for me to move on to something fresher and slightly different for a change of scenery. So, for those of you who will also be playing Diablo 4 Season 4, I hope to see you in my future Diablo 4 videos. If you are not playing D4, I still hope to see you in all my future videos. If not, I hope to see you again in the next PoE League. And as always, if you enjoyed the content, a like and subscribe would mean the world to me. Thank you so very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.